Welcome to We the People Rise. Today we are talking to State Senator from North Carolina, Graig Meyer. Now, Graig has this incredible background, and he's going to be talking to us about how to become empowered citizens, how to take the power that we have as individuals who live in the United States and have influence both at the local, the state, and the national level. I met Graig through the education when I worked for the high school system in Chapel Hill. Graig, you were there as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, when you were working as a counselor, I was working in college access for the same school district. So we had a lot of students that overlapped between your counseling and my mentoring, trying to help kids. Mostly kids would be first in their family or first generation to go to college. And as much as I think the work that I do today is important, I miss working directly with those kids. There's nothing better than working with them every day.
It's so fun, and that's part of what we're talking about with helping people rise, helping ourselves rise, helping other people rise. It's giving them access, it's giving them opportunity. Doesn't mean you're going to do the work for them, but giving them the opportunity to go forward and to create, the American dream, if you will.
That's right. I mean, I think that's the through line in my life is that my life has always been about using whatever access that I have to power to give people access to the opportunities that they want. And so part of that was about giving people the opportunity to go to college. And now it's about all kinds of other opportunities that you depend on the government to be able to give you. You need a government that uses the power that the government has to help you, your family, your community have the opportunities that you want. Don't guarantee anything to people, but you try and make sure they have the chance.
Right. And give them access. So I know, and this is a perfect segue into this. A lot of people right now are feeling incredibly powerless with the political landscape the way that it is. Where does the power actually live in a democracy?
The government, of course, always has power in a democracy when the government is vested with the power by the people. And so people have the ability to change the power of the government through the process of elections, but elections don't happen every day. Government does happen every day. And so I think that's why people feel powerless is you have a situation where at the federal and state level in North Carolina, you have a government that is very aggressive in certain ways that many of us, me included, feel like is taking away opportunities and freedoms from people. And for many of us in our lifetime, is the most restrictive, aggressive, authoritarian government that we've experienced. And when we don't have an immediate election, our ability to exercise our power to change that government, we have to wait until the next election. I understand why people feel powerless, but it's also a little bit faulty to think about elections as only one point in time because everything that's happening right now, from the public discourse to the organizing, all of those things are related to preparing for the 2026 midterm elections. And there's ways for people to be involved. If you feel like I want to do something, great, we need you to do something now.
All right, so that's perfect. What can people do? Like, what would be something if you are a person that you're watching this, you're very frustrated maybe with your own state, maybe you're in the state of North Carolina, or maybe it's just a national issue for you. How do you plug in when it's a non-election time and start to feel like you have some power in this or exercise your power as a citizen?
I would say there's three ways. Like I would say number one, like I think there's power in being an informed citizen. And if someone is watching or listening to this podcast, then they are an informed citizen. But you have to use your sense of being informed. What is it that you know to engage in the public discourse? And public discourse is not just agreeing with people who already believe the same things that you believe. And we're in big silos these days, especially online, where we're only talking to people that agree with us. Public discourse is engaging in the broader discourse of what are we thinking collectively right now. And so whether that is through social media, personal media, family connections, like using your sense of being informed to engage in and influence that discourse is an inherently political act in a democracy. If you're not in a democracy, you don't have that power, but here you do. Second thing I would say is I think for people who feel like the government is threatening right now, like it's authoritarian, like it's cruel, I think it's important to remember that when you feel like your government is harming people that you care about, that showing those people acts of care is an act of resistance. And so if you're concerned right now about how the government is treating, say, transgender people, then figuring out ways to be active in caring for and advocating for those people. If you're worried about the way the government is making life harder on poor people, then volunteering through a local community program like porch that feeds hungry families here in our community. Actually, the porch is in 14 states now. So all over, wherever you are, like you can be
Wow.
working with them to
Right.
try and take care of people. That act of direct care is a political act when it is an act that is countering harm done by the government. And then third, you can be engaged in the political process. And I think you can do that by participating with the political party if that's what you choose. And so, for instance, the Democratic Party is organizing for the 2026 midterm elections already. You can be engaged in that organizing, or you can engage in the political process through any number of advocacy organizations that work on issues. So maybe you say, I'm not a party person, but I really care about an issue. So, for instance, maybe I care about teachers, maybe I care about veterans, maybe I care about women's reproductive health. There are advocacy organizations that organize politically around every issue you can imagine, and they depend on volunteers and donors that are people like you in order to do anything. So they would be glad to have you.
I love those ways, and it gets you engaged. It's something that you value, right? So you're going to be the most effective citizen when you plug into what's important to you. And like you said, it might be women's reproductive rights, it might be transgender rights, it might be education, whatever it is, you're going to be most powerful and have the most energy, sustained energy when you resonate with whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is, to
Right.
keep going, to keep showing up, to get past any fears you have, to reach out, to do those things that are necessary for you to be bringing, a difference into that environment.
I mean, we know that people with a purpose-driven life usually find that purpose in some way that's related to service to others or service to the larger environment around them. And that's what this is. This is deciding what is the purpose that I want to play at this point in time with my life, my skills, etc., and plugging in rather than withdrawing. Withdrawing because it's a very difficult time in the world and it's scary to you is
Right.
not a way that you're actually going to change anything. Plugging in is.
So, one of the things that has become clear as we've seen our understanding of government shifting is that the systems that were in place to hold people accountable and to uphold some of the tenets we always assumed would be untouchable. We've seen some of those systems eroding on a national level, and to your point, on a state level as well. The systems are responsible for a lot of the way that things are right now, just the systems as they're constructed. So, in your opinion, if somebody wants to start shifting the entire system, how would they go about that?
Well, I think that there's two pieces that you hit on there, Kristen. Like there is a piece about accountability and accountability cascades, right? So like if the public is holding me accountable as a state senator, then I am more likely to use my power to hold the other pieces of the government accountable for the things that people are holding me accountable for. And so that cascading effect of building momentum and channeling it into the people that have the actual power for accountability is one important way that we change the system in the United States. It's that sense of power never cedes without a demand, right? So, what is the demand of the people? How are they organizing to make that demand on people like me who have power? But the second way that you can build a different system is to engage with organizations and opportunities that are system building. I think that I am an institutionalist. Like, I believe that the best way to do that is to engage with the systems that exist, like our political system, our two-party system, and to try and make the Democratic Party, the one that I serve in, better at changing the system and to try and serve in the General Assembly in a way that will work to improve the system. There are other people who I completely understand and love take more of an outsider approach, that they want to work with organizations that are trying to build new systems, new cultures. I think that those are important. And often what happens is those people that are building on the outside, when they gain enough power, traction, popularity, whatever it is, they impact those of us who are on the inside, and we're able to do our jobs better. And we need to have a good relationship between both strategies.
I love that you said that. And this is an aside, but my father was a minister in Durham at a church called Westminster Presbyterian Church. And there was a guy there named Haywood Holderness. And Haywood was a very powerful member in the community of Durham. And people often asked him, hey, why don't you run for office? because he was very tied in. And he said, because I have more power as a citizen than I would as a representative. And I always felt that that was such an interesting answer because it always seemed to me like, you being the state senator would have way more power than somebody like me who's not in the system. But I like how you said, like, those people coming in and they're impacting what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that depends on who you are, right? I knew Haywood. I like he was a good example because he had a huge number of relationships and understood the complexity of many issues that
Right.
impact people in the community. His power was the ability to communicate to multiple elected officials at the federal, state, and local level. If he was entering into only one of those levels, he would be narrowing himself to a way of only impacting what that one specific elected body does, whereas he could impact a broad array of things. Like you're right, you can't replace that power when you choose to narrow in on one thing. On the other hand, he doesn't have a vote in the state Senate, and I do, and there's only 50 of us. And so even though I lose a lot of votes because I'm in the minority party, I would never say I don't have access to power because I have a vote that represents 220,000 people that none of those other people have.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to get back to him because I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be running for office, but they are going to want to have impact. And so using him or whoever else, this is not just him, but who are the people that you've witnessed who have made a difference, who are on the outside, and how did they do it?
I can give you lots of examples of that, but I don't want to skip over running for office
Yeah, fair.
because
Well, we
things
can
that
talk
I've
about that because that's a whole conversation. So let's just jump
Yeah,
into
well,
that.
I mean, I just want to say it briefly. Like one of the
Yeah.
things that I've learned, and I think you know this because you knew me personally, you knew me as a young social worker in the school system way before I was in the General Assembly. Like our elected bodies are just made up of regular people who get elevated to a new position.
Right,
And one of my favorite comments that one of my colleagues said in the NC House one time is he said, I used to think there were a lot of smart people who came down here and made these big decisions, and it turns out it's just us.
right.
And he was right. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
like we need good people to step up and run for office. We can't have good government without it. And the number of people who say, "Oh, I could never do that," or I'm not the right person," or "It's not the right time," and take themselves out of consideration when we need them in political service, like this is a time where people should consider, what can they do and what should they do. So I don't want to discount that. That
nope.
said, I think even if you think maybe I want to do that or I don't want to do that, you still have to think about what difference do you make in your community because if you're going to run for office or you're not, like your ability to make an impact, whether to demonstrate that you're qualified for office or just to make an impact, depends on how you engage in your community. And I think it's probably my favorite part of my job in the legislature is the community work that I get to do. It feels like an extension of my social work service of like, who
Yep.
are all these organizations, people, individuals, communities, sub-communities within my district where people make a difference. And I love to ask people a question when I'm meeting them for the first time of like, what do you do for your community? What do you do to make your community better? Almost everyone has an answer to that. It can be coaching Little League Baseball. It can be the leadership work they do in their church. That's what it takes to build a social fabric. But where I think people don't have an answer is when they're disconnected from other organizations or other people. If you're not plugged into some type of organization where you're connecting with other people, collaborating to make a difference, whether it's as a volunteer or as a member or whatever it is, then you're just much less likely to have the ability to make a difference. Now, once you're in that position and you want to be somebody like Haywood, I think then there's an important set of steps of how do you learn to take this issue that you care about, where you're maybe providing direct support to people and advocate for those people and other people like them by connecting to elected officials like me. And that takes some learning. Like, how do you have impact on people who are in elected office and who can do something for you and your community?
Absolutely. And I would say to those who want to either run for office or have impact to have a lot of grace for yourself. Because, and you know this from your personal life as well as from working with young people, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to screw up a lot. You're going to feel deflated at times. But and you're going to be embarrassed and you're going to have all these like little tiny fears that get in the way, but you have to kind of keep going and keep moving. Haywood, the reason I bring him up is his nickname was Hey, would you give me some money? That's what they nicknamed him as because he was this incredible fundraiser and he really felt that if you had resources, it was your responsibility to give them to some part of the community. And this particular church, it was a very mission-driven church, Westminster, but he was on the phone all the time. And it's interesting you know him because I didn't know you knew him. How did you know him?
I think when I first got in the legislature and I was representing Durham, he was still
Yes.
a very active community
Yeah.
volunteer. So just the type of person everybody knows.
Right. So he was out of his comfort zone all the time, or in his comfort zone, he was a social guy. But if you're looking to recreate or to have this kind of power, getting involved, going and meeting people, having lunch with people, having conversations with people, that's going to help build your social cachet so that you can then be empowered to call Greg and be like, hey, Greg, I have this thing I want to talk to you about. And he might actually take your call. Whereas before, if he didn't know you, I would imagine you get a lot of people who want your time and your input, like me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Like, I think he's the type of person who's a super connector, right? And there are lots of people who are great connectors, and you can use that skill to be able to build political power and opportunity. If you're not a connector, maybe you hear that story and you're like, oh, that's not me. I'm an
Right,
introvert and I'm not that
right,
type of person. There's still ways that you can speak up for and advocate for people. I mean, there are all the traditional ways of call your representative, write your representative. But one of the things that I tell advocates as a rule of thumb is think about the level of impact that you have on me is directly related to the amount of my time that you get. So if your name shows up on a petition, you are getting a minuscule amount of my time. I may not even notice that your name is on my
right,
petition. I may not even see the petition. My
right,
staff might see it, right, et cetera.
right.
If you come to my office at the General Assembly, the most you're going to get is a 15-minute meeting. That's my
Okay.
day is in 15-minute increments. If you get more than that, it is a slow day, or you were incredibly lucky, or you're a really good friend, or something. But usually you're going to get a 15-minute meeting. And sometimes when you arrive, my assistant might tell you he's only going to have 5 minutes. But if you are in a, let's say you're with a community organization that you want something from the state of North Carolina, you're advocating for something, and you schedule a meeting for me to come and visit your organization and meet the people that you work with and see your facility and talk with you in depth, and you get an hour on my schedule, well, then obviously you have a much bigger impact on what I'm doing as a legislator than that 15-minute meeting or that a 1 minute email that I read, right? Because you get an hour of my time, you get my thinking, you get an emotional connection, and all of those things are going to have a bigger impact on what I go back and do as long as you do one thing, which sometimes people fail to do, which Haywood was good at, which you have to ask me for something,
Ah,
right?
yes.
Because sometimes people come to
Yep.
my office and they're like, hey, we're here for the Society for Cute Puppy Dogs. And we just want to know, do you support cute puppy dogs? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I love cute puppy dogs. That's great. And then they walk out of the office and they haven't gotten anything from me besides making them feel good because they didn't actually ask me to do something for cute puppy dogs. What is it that you want? What's the legislation that you want? What's the appropriation that you want? What is it that you need access to in state government that will help cute puppy dogs? You
Uh,
have to give me something concrete to act on. Otherwise, all you got was a nice pat on the back and a smile and a photo.
That is such great advice. And I want to take this in two directions. One, I want to talk about money. But before I talk about money, I want to talk about what people can do. Like, how do they find out what appropriations what legislation they need, and all of that. And I want to tell a quick story. So, when I was a counselor, I had a student. She was 16 or 17 years old when she did this, but she managed to get some small piece of legislation through this legislature for something that she wanted. And obviously, she worked through the state representative. But that to me, I knew this because that was part of her narrative, right? But that to me, it never even dawned on me. And I'm like, twice, three times her age, going, wow, that's a little empowering. So, how would a person, if they have an idea that they think would be good or would like to discuss, how do they make that happen?
So, I mean, you can always just reach out to your representatives at whatever level they are and try and have a persuasive conversation with them. Those stories of an individual person with an individual cause that turns into a law or an appropriation or something are amazing, but they're also pretty rare. Like, that's not
Yeah,
the way
I would think
most
so.
business gets done. The way
Yeah.
most business gets done in a state legislature, in the Congress, et cetera, is through associations.
Okay.
And so if you have an issue that you care about, you want a change related to that, who are the association of people that work on that issue?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's hunger,
Yep.
and then you want to know what are the advocacy organizations that do work at the legislature where they advocate around hunger, homelessness, food insecurity, etc. And you may find that there's some organizations that are really easy to plug into. Like you may find that you're able to see, oh, here's this community organization, and I can just connect with them, and then they're part of a larger organization of other groups that are like them. Or you may find that you have unlikely allies. So, for instance, on food insecurity, an unlikely ally at the North Carolina General Assembly has been the Association of Gas Stations.
Hmm.
Because some of the legislation that we've done to try and make sure that there's more healthy access to food in more places has gone through gas stations because they all sell food and there's so many of them. And so, if you don't have a supermarket with healthy food, can you get more healthy food into the gas stations? So, you have to figure out like who is it that I can connect with, that I can work with. Now, you're not going to walk into your local gas station, but if you're working with a hunger organization and they may be working with allies, and
Yeah.
then you may be able to build these bigger and bigger relationships, all of which then impact what people like me work on.
So if somebody has an idea, they would send it to your office and it would go to your staff, right?
Yeah, let's be clear. My office is me and one staff person. So yeah,
Okay.
like I'm gonna read your email. We will both read your email. Yeah.
Okay, so then you can follow up with a phone call or you can follow up with whatever, and depending on where you are, and that's a lot of emails you have to respond to. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's the job.
Yes, it is. I know that a lot of people feel like politicians only respond to money, and we've seen evidence of that. Of if you're not giving to the campaign, if you're not creating an opportunity for the politician, if they're not going to be able to get some type of fiscal gain, then your position on their totem pole of importance is very low. Can you speak to that?
I mean, that's true for some crappy politicians. Sure. Like I've heard politicians say that to me, like if that's the way you're motivated, you're a really bad public servant. But I think the part of your question is, well, how can you make a difference if you're not a political donor? You just care about an issue really deeply. And again, I mean, I would say like this is where it benefits you to plug into organizations that maybe do have the ability to exercise political power, whether it's through donations or otherwise, right? Because there are lots of organizations that do advocacy at the General Assembly that maybe also have a political action committee, a PAC that makes donations if, to the extent that that's important, and we'll acknowledge that sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Or there's other ways to support people politically. If you have something that you really care about and you have a champion, a legislator, a city council member, whoever it is, who's going to help you with moving that issue, then it probably will make a difference if you also organized a volunteer for their campaign, or you get other people to support their campaign, or you host a meet and greet for them. Like those are ways that you can really make people feel indebted to you because you did something to help them where they needed help, and they'll help you with what you need. Like I think that money definitely corrupts the process, but it's also important to recognize that reciprocity is real in human relationships. And so
Mhm.
if I feel like, oh my gosh, that person went out of their way to help me, then I'm more likely to do the same for you.
Yeah, and it's a catch-22 because you need money to continue to campaign and to do what you do. And there is the reciprocity. So it's like we've seen kind of on the national level. If, Elon Musk is giving lots of money, he's getting lots of contracts for it. There's a reciprocity attached to it, which feels very corrupt and it
Yes.
feels very icky. But yet it also is part of the system that we, haven't fully figured out. And then the whole dark money thing, like,
Right.
who's now owed favors that nobody knows about.
Right. Well, somebody knows about, but the public
Yeah,
doesn't know about is the issue, right? The
right.
people, that's the issue with dark money is the people who need to know, and the public doesn't.
Right. No, that's very well said. All right. Are there any last suggestions you would have for people who are really trying to make a difference in their local, in their state, in their national level?
I would say the one suggestion that may feel kind of basic, but I end up giving people a lot is make sure in your advocacy that you know what each body and level of government does and which group you need to go to, right? So like there are people who approach me that they want help with something that is a judicial matter, and I'm in the legislative branch, not the judicial. I can't help them with that. Or they have something that they want that really the county commissioners control, not the state legislature. And so it's easy for me. I can very politely redirect them where they need to go. But for you to be an effective advocate, you need to know the way the system works, who has power over the thing you want, and what are the mechanisms that they have for you to directly engage them. Because engaging the county commissioners is very different than engaging state legislature. So how do you do that? What are the opportunities that they present to you, and how do you make your voice heard in that setting?
I love that piece of advice. I'm also trying to figure out if there is like a place people can go. Like, is there one place people can go? Like, I'm having an issue with X, Y, and Z. Who should I go to in my community to deal with this?
I don't know that there's a one-stop shop for that, Kristen. That's a good question.
Yeah,
I mean, again, like if you're connected on an issue you care about and you're with an organization that works on that issue, the organization will likely know.
they will because they're already in it. But yeah, if
Right.
you're like just walking down the street and you're like, oh, here's the thing, who do I talk to? I guess you'll have to kind of dig around and find out because it could be the town manager, like you said, or the
Right.
county commissioner
Right.
or
Or
state.
ask your super connector friends like Haywood, like, hey,
Right.
this is what I'm thinking about. Who do you know who would be
Right.
interested in this? And they'll tell you who to go to.
Oh, you would have. All right. Well, thank you so much, Greg. And if people want to donate to you or they want to find you, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, well, thank you for that opportunity. I'm on all social media and it's pretty easy to find my official and my campaign stuff just by looking for my name. You just have to spell it the way my mother did, Graigmeyer. So it's like Craig with a G in the front, Meyer for Meyer. The way that most people engage with me these days is that every Sunday I publish pretty lengthy take on what's happening in the world on Substack, my campaign email, and Facebook. And so you can find me on any of those and find what I'm thinking each week there. And if you're interested in talking to me about legislative business, just reach out through my legislative office and we'd be happy to talk to you about whatever issue it is that you care about.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate the chance to talk with folks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for being on. All right, people, there you go. There is your information on how to be a more empowered citizen, both at the state and local and national level.